You complained about being scheduled 16 hours? You're done. Leave your badge, Diane snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet lobby. The morning sun streamed through the grand windows of the Alpine, highlighting the shock on my face as I stood frozen behind the reception desk. 6 guests, waiting to check out, watched the scene unfold, their expressions shifting from impatience to uncomfortable interest. I just asked why I was the only one scheduled for doubles all weekend, I said quietly, conscious of the audience. The convention starts tomorrow, and now you won't be here for it, Diane interrupted, palm outstretched. Badge, now. My hands trembled slightly as I unpinned the silver name tag from my blazer. 3 years of perfect evaluations, guest commendations, and solving impossible situations erased in 30 seconds. Because I'd questioned why I alone was working 16-hour shifts while Diane's friends on staff enjoyed normal hours. I placed my access card in her palm, noticing how her wedding ring, purchased after her recent promotion to general manager, caught the light. A promotion I had trained her for. Clean out your desk and personal items within the hour, she continued, already turning toward a wealthy couple waiting at the concierge desk. Security will escort you out. Heat crawled up my neck as I felt every eye in the lobby on me. The businessman in the charcoal suit, who always requested room 512 when he visited quarterly, looked genuinely concerned. I had always ensured his room was ready early, remembering how he mentioned once that he liked to shower immediately after his red-eye flight. Will Tilly be handling my check-in tomorrow? He asked Diane uncertainly. We have perfectly capable staff who follow actual hotel protocols, Diane responded with practiced cheerfulness. Tilly won't be with us anymore. I walked to the back office on legs that felt disconnected from my body. 3 years of building relationships with guests, memorizing hundreds of preferences, anticipating needs before they arose, all dismissed as if they meant nothing. In the empty break room, I carefully packed my few belongings. The spare shoes I kept for emergencies, the handwritten thank you notes from satisfied guests, the small emergency kit containing everything from safety pins to aspirin that had saved countless guest situations. As I closed my locker, I noticed the staff schedule for the luxury car convention weekend. Every experienced staff member had been replaced with new hires or Diane's friends from her previous hotel, people who had never handled the particular needs of the collectors, executives, and enthusiasts who filled our rooms during this annual event. I thought about texting Pearl, the night auditor who was a single mother working toward her degree. She'd need warnings about Mr. Thompson's 2 a.m. cognac requests and Miss Wu's allergy to lavender-scented anything. My phone chimed with a staff message from Diane. Reset complete. Looking forward to showing leadership how hospitality should work tomorrow. I turned off notifications and walked toward the exit, passing the framed plaques announcing our hotel's consistent 5-star ratings. Ratings I had personally safeguarded by remembering that Mr. Lawson needed extra towels without being asked, that the Hendersons celebrated their anniversary every May, that the Peterson family required connecting rooms with the door already opened upon arrival. Tomorrow, the regional director would arrive to observe our location's success during the convention weekend. Diane had no idea that our stellar reputation rested not on her precious standard protocols, but on hundreds of small, unwritten adaptations I'd created. The security guard, Joey, whose daughter had just started college with help from the scholarship I'd quietly recommended him for, avoided my eyes as he walked me to my car. This isn't right, Tilly, he whispered. Everyone knows you're the heart of this place. I managed a smile. Take care of Pearl for me. She's going to need help this weekend. As I drove away, I glimpsed Diane in the lobby, instructing the staff with exaggerated gestures, pointing repeatedly at the corporate guest relations handbook I'd long ago recognized as woefully inadequate for actual human interactions. If you're finding this story resonates with you, please take a second to hit like and subscribe. I share new workplace stories every week, and your support means everything. Drop a comment if you've ever been undervalued at work. I read every single one. My name is Tilly Walsh, and until 3 hours ago, I was the night manager at the Alpine, the most prestigious hotel in our lakeside town. Everyone called me the Whisperer, because I could calm any situation, remember any preference, and solve any problem before it escalated. I hadn't always been this way. Growing up as the middle child in a chaotic household of 7 taught me to observe carefully, to anticipate needs, and to recognize the slightest changes in mood. By 8 years old, I could tell from my father's footsteps exactly what kind of day he'd had at the factory. By 12, I could diffuse my mother's anxiety attacks before my siblings even noticed them beginning. These weren't skills I'd learned in hospitality training. They were survival tactics that had unexpectedly translated into professional success. I sat in my apartment now, staring at the lake through my small balcony window, the same lake that the luxury suites at the Alpine overlooked at 20 times my rent. The convention guests would begin arriving tomorrow, hundreds of wealthy car enthusiasts, collectors, and industry executives who returned year after year, bringing millions in revenue. My phone vibrated again. Another text from Pearl. What do I do about the Thompsons? They're arriving at midnight and insisting on the corner suite, but Diane gave it to her friend from college. I closed my eyes. The Thompsons had stayed in that corner suite for 8 consecutive years. Mr. Thompson tipped generously and always complimented our establishment to his extensive network of wealthy friends. She doesn't understand what she's done, I whispered to my empty apartment. The Alpine wasn't successful because of its marble floors or rainfall showers. It thrived because I had built a system of personalized care that no corporate handbook could replicate. I kept mental notes on every returning guest, their allergies, preferences, anniversary dates, children's names, dietary restrictions, details that transformed their stay from transactional to magical. When the Harrison family arrived with a child in sensory distress, I had already removed the scented toiletries and replaced the bright overhead bulbs with softer lighting. When Judge Carlton checked in after difficult court days, I ensured his room had extra soundproofing and his preferred whiskey waiting. When Mrs. Yamamoto arrived for her monthly business trips, I made sure her room had a northeastern exposure for her morning meditation. None of these accommodations were in Diane's precious handbook. I picked up my phone, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. Should I warn Pearl about specific guests? About Mr. Lockhart's insomnia and need for absolute silence? About how the Gabrielson twins would test whatever boundaries were set unless addressed with gentle firmness? Then I remembered Diane's smirk as she held out her hand for my badge. The satisfaction in her eyes as she dismantled everything I'd built. I set down the phone. If Diane wanted to show leadership how hospitality should work, she could do it without my insights. Without the network of small kindnesses and personalized touches I'd woven through the hotel's operations. The regional director, Mr. Blackwood, was notoriously demanding. He evaluated properties based on guest satisfaction, staff efficiency, and revenue generation. The Alpine had consistently ranked first in the region under my management approach. Tomorrow would be Diane's first evaluation without me quietly ensuring everything ran perfectly. My phone rang, the hotel's main number. I let it go to voicemail. Tilly, it's Clara from housekeeping. We're having an issue with the Von Hausen reservation. They're insisting on the hypoallergenic pillows you always arranged, but nobody knows where you kept them. Can you please call back? Diane is getting upset. I deleted the message. For 3 years, I'd solved every problem, anticipated every need, and smoothed every rough edge at the Alpine. I'd trained Diane herself when she transferred from the budget hotel across town, patiently explaining the difference between processing transactions and creating experiences. And she had fired me for asking why I alone was working 16-hour shifts. I walked to my kitchenette and made tea, watching the steam rise in curls above the mug. Outside, the sun was setting over the lake, painting the water in shades of amber and gold. The same view that the Alpine charged $700 per night to enjoy. My phone buzzed again, this time, a text from Ben, one of the valets. The Silvermans just arrived early. They're asking for you specifically. Diane told them you quit suddenly. Mr. Silverman looks furious. The Silvermans owned a chain of luxury car dealerships and were the unofficial hosts of the convention. I had spent years building rapport with them, learning their preferences down to the specific temperature Mrs. Silverman preferred for her morning coffee. I set my phone face down on the counter. Perhaps this was the natural conclusion to undervaluing someone's contribution. Perhaps Diane needed to experience firsthand what it meant to lose the human element in hospitality, the difference between following protocols and truly caring for guests. As night fell, I could see the Alpine's lights reflecting on the lake's surface. The grand illuminated sign, the warm glow from the lobby windows, the subtle landscape lighting I had personally suggested to highlight the property's best features. Tomorrow, everything would change. Not because of anything I would do, but because of everything I wouldn't be there to do. My phone rang again. This time, it was Diane herself. I let the call go to voicemail, a small act of rebellion that felt unexpectedly satisfying. The message came through seconds later. Tilly, this is Diane. We need to discuss your departure. There seems to be some confusion with certain guest arrangements. Call me back immediately. No apology. No acknowledgement that she had publicly humiliated me. Just the expectation that I would rush to fix her problems. I deleted the message and turned my phone to silent. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No 2 a.m. calls about a guest locked out of their room. No early morning crisis with the breakfast service. No juggling of room assignments to accommodate unexpected VIPs. I woke naturally at 7:30 a.m., 2 hours later than my normal schedule, and made coffee in my quiet apartment. The morning stretched before me with no obligations, no emergencies, no Diane. My phone screen was filled with notifications, 12 missed calls, 27 text messages, and 5 voicemails. I scrolled through them with detached curiosity. Pearl. The Silvermans demanded their usual welcome basket, but nobody knows what was in it. Ben. Mr. Thompson arrived at 1 a.m. and there was no cognac in his room. He's threatening to leave. Clara. 3 rooms weren't ready for check-in. Diane is screaming at housekeeping. Joey. Total chaos in the lobby. New girl at the desk keeps crying. The last text was from Pearl again. Regional director arrived early. His preferred suite wasn't prepared. He's sitting in the lobby watching everything fall apart. I set my phone down and walked to my balcony. Across the lake, the Alpine stood majestically against the morning sky, its white facade gleaming in the sunlight. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But I knew better. I thought about what I had truly taken with me when I left. Not physical items, nothing that could be replaced or repurchased. I had taken something far more valuable, the intricate web of personalized service that made the Alpine special. The mental database of guest preferences, staff strengths, and problem-solving techniques that no handbook could capture. My neighbor Mia knocked on my door around noon, surprised to find me home on a weekday. Day off? She asked, borrowing sugar for her baking project. Something like that, I replied. I was let go yesterday. Her eyes widened. From the Alpine? But you're the reason that place runs so well. My sister stayed there last month and wouldn't stop talking about how you arranged a surprise birthday cake for her husband. I smiled faintly. Apparently, I wasn't following proper protocols. Mia snorted. Protocols. Right, because that's what makes people drive 3 hours and pay premium rates. Strict adherence to corporate protocols. After she left, I found myself drawn to my laptop. Without thinking, I opened the local news website. The headline made my stomach clench. Luxury car convention off to rocky start. Guests reporting unprecedented issues at host hotel. The article detailed how several high-profile guests had already checked out and moved to competing hotels. Social media was buzzing with complaints about long wait times, room mix-ups, and staff confusion. I closed the laptop and tried to focus on a book, but my mind kept returning to the Alpine, to Pearl, who would be bearing the brunt of the night shift chaos, to Joey, who would be dealing with angry guests and their expensive cars, to the housekeeping staff, who would be blamed for problems they couldn't have prevented. They weren't responsible for this situation. Diane was. My phone rang again, this time displaying Mr. Blackwood's personal number. The regional director had my contact information from previous evaluations when he'd commended my management style. I hesitated, then answered. Tilly. His voice was tense. What the hell is happening at the Alpine? I've never seen such disorganization. I no longer work there, Mr. Blackwood. Diane terminated my employment yesterday. The silence that followed was heavy with disbelief. She what? He finally responded. The day before our biggest event of the year? On what grounds? I questioned why I was scheduled for consecutive double shifts while others weren't. Another lengthy pause. I see. His tone had shifted from confusion to something cooler. And would you be willing to return if the situation were adjusted? The question hung in the air between us. Would I? Could I walk back through those doors after being so publicly dismissed? Work alongside Diane after she had made it clear how little she valued my contribution? I'm afraid that's not possible, Mr. Blackwood. I've already begun exploring other opportunities. A lie, but one that preserved my dignity. I understand, he said, though his voice suggested he didn't. Well, if you change your mind. After we hung up, I paced my small apartment. Part of me wanted to rush to the Alpine to rescue my colleagues from the disaster unfolding. But a stronger part, a part I rarely acknowledged, wanted Diane to experience the full consequences of her decision. By evening, my curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the Alpine, slowing as I approached. The normally orderly valet area was chaotic. with luxury cars backed up along the entrance. Through the grand lobby windows, I could see a crowd at the reception desk, guests gesturing angrily as harried staff tried to manage the situation. I recognized Mr. Silverman's distinctive white hair as he pounded the counter, his face flushed with anger. Beside him stood Diane, her perfect posture now wilted, her expression desperate as she flipped through the protocol handbook. I drove on, a complex mix of emotions swirling inside me. Satisfaction? Yes, but also genuine concern for the staff and guests caught in this mess. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Regional director called emergency meeting. Diane tried to blame system failures and staff incompetence. We all told him the truth, that you were the system. I smiled despite myself. Then another text arrived, this one from Pearl. Diane just got ripped apart in director's meeting. He asked why most valuable employee was fired before biggest weekend. She had no answer. I turned onto the lakeside path, parking at the public viewing area where the water reflected the lights of the Alpine. In the gathering darkness, I could see movement in the executive conference room on the top floor, silhouettes gesturing wildly, one person pointing accusingly at another. My phone rang again, Diane. This time, I answered. Tilly. Her voice was strained, all previous authority drained away. We need you to come back. Mr. Blackwood is insisting. We'll double your salary, whatever schedule you want. And if I refuse? I asked quietly. Please, she whispered, her voice cracking. They're threatening to transfer me back to the budget property. Everything's falling apart. The Thompsons checked out. The Silvermans are threatening to move the convention next year. Mr. Blackwood says this is the worst service failure he's ever witnessed. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. I didn't realize, she continued, desperation evident in every syllable. I didn't understand what you actually did here. I thought anyone could follow the handbook. You thought I was replaceable. I finished for her. Yes, she admitted. I was wrong. Please, Tilly, help me fix this. The request hung in the air as I watched the lights of the Alpine reflecting on the dark water. 3 years of early mornings and late nights. 3 years of solving problems no one else saw coming. 3 years of building relationships that Diane had dismantled in a single day. I'll think about it, I said finally, and ended the call. As I sat overlooking the lake, my phone continued to light up with messages detailing the escalating crisis. The luxury car convention was imploding. Guests were demanding refunds. Social media was flooded with complaints. Local news crews had arrived to cover the hospitality disaster. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. This wasn't just about Diane facing consequences. Real people, my former colleagues, innocent guests, were suffering in the crossfire. A text from Joey showed a photo of Pearl at the front desk, clearly overwhelmed, trying to comfort a crying new hire, while a line of angry guests stretched across the lobby. That was the moment I realized something crucial about revenge. It rarely impacts only the intended target. I started my car and began driving, not yet certain of my destination. The satisfaction of watching Diane's carefully constructed facade crumble was real, but so was my concern for people who had nothing to do with her poor decision. As I approached the intersection, I had a choice. Turn left toward my apartment and let the situation continue to unfold without me, or turn right toward the Alpine and step back into the chaos. The traffic light turned yellow, then red. I sat at the empty intersection, hands gripping the steering wheel. As the competing impulses battled within me, the light turned green again. I made my choice. I turned right. Not because Diane deserved my help, she didn't, but because Pearl, Joey, Clara, and the others had become my family over 3 years. The chaos engulfing the Alpine wasn't just Diane's nightmare, it was theirs too. As I pulled into the staff parking area, a strange calm settled over me. Through the service entrance windows, I could see harried employees rushing in every direction. A young housekeeper I didn't recognize was crying in the hallway while Clara tried to comfort her. I hesitated at the door, my hand on the handle. Was I making a mistake? Coming back on the very first day after being fired might erase any point I'd made about my value. Before I could decide, the door swung open. Joey stood there, relief washing over his face. You came, he said simply. Not for her, I clarified. He nodded. We know. The moment I stepped inside, the familiar sense of the hotel surrounded me, the subtle signature fragrance in the air, the freshly polished floors, the light floral arrangements. For a brief moment, it felt like coming home. Then reality intruded as a loud crash echoed from the direction of the kitchen, followed by shouting. The head chef quit an hour ago, Joey explained as we walked. Nobody remembered his daughter has severe asthma, and Diane put him in a basement room next to the laundry vents. I winced. Chef Morris had worked at the Alpine for a decade. I'd always ensured his family stayed in the hypoallergenic suite on the top floor, far from potential triggers. How bad is it really? I asked. Joey's expression was grim. The Silvermans left. Thompson checked out at 3 a.m. The Martinez wedding party is threatening to cancel tomorrow's reception, and the regional director has been making calls to corporate all afternoon. We rounded the corner to the main lobby, and I stopped short at the scene before me. The normally pristine space was in disarray. Luggage was piled haphazardly near the entrance. The line at reception stretched to the door. Raised voices competed with ringing phones. Behind the desk, 3 overwhelmed employees struggled to manage the chaos while Diane paced behind them. Her designer suit wrinkled, her perfect hair coming loose. She hadn't noticed me yet. Pearl was the first to spot me from her position at the concierge desk. Her eyes widened, and she immediately abandoned the guest she was helping to rush over. "You're here," she whispered, squeezing my arm. "Thank God. Mr. Blackwood is about to fire everyone." "Where is he?" I asked. "Executive dining room. Emergency meeting with corporate leadership." I nodded. "I need 10 minutes at my old desk. Can you handle things until then?" Pearl's expression shifted from relief to determination. "Yes. What should I tell Diane if she sees you?" I glanced at my former manager, now frantically apologizing to an irate guest. "Nothing yet. Let me work." I slipped through the staff door and made my way to the small office I'd used for 3 years. It was already being packed up, my personal items in boxes, the desk partially cleared, but the computer was still there. And more importantly, so was the hidden drawer underneath that only I knew about. I slid it open and removed a simple leather notebook. Not the official hotel logbook or anything corporate would recognize. This was my personal system, developed over years. Each page contained detailed notes on repeat guests, staff capabilities, vendor relationships, and problem-solving workflows I'd created. The hotel's official systems tracked reservations and billing. My notebook tracked humanity. I flipped to the convention section. Every car collector's preferences were meticulously documented. Mr. Thompson's cognac requirements, the Silverman's morning routine, which guests could be placed in adjoining rooms and which needed buffer rooms between them due to noise sensitivity, which VIPs appreciated public recognition and which preferred absolute privacy. This notebook had never been official hotel property. It was my personal method, my human approach to hospitality that couldn't be replicated by following corporate protocols. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the executive dining room and knocked once before entering. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. Mr. Blackwood sat at the head of the table, surrounded by 4 corporate executives I recognized from previous evaluations. Diane stood at the whiteboard, mid-explanation, her face paling as she saw me. "Tilly," Mr. Blackwood said, rising from his seat, "thank you for coming." I nodded, clutching my notebook. "I'm here for the staff, not for management." "Understood," he replied, shooting a pointed look at Diane. "We were just discussing the unprecedented situation." Diane's voice was strained as she stepped forward. "Tilly, I'm so grateful you." I cut her off with a raised hand. "I'm not interested in gratitude after being publicly fired for asking a reasonable question about scheduling." The executives exchanged glances. One of them, a silver-haired woman I knew to be the head of operations, frowned deeply. "You were terminated for questioning the schedule?" she asked sharply. Before Diane could respond, I placed my notebook on the table. "This contains everything you need to salvage this weekend. Every guest preference, every special arrangement, every workflow that makes this property function beyond basic protocols." Mr. Blackwood reached for it. "This is what was missing? Your personal notes?" "This is what I took with me," I confirmed. "Not hotel property, not confidential information, just my approach to hospitality that prioritizes human relationships over procedural compliance." The executives leaned forward, examining the detailed pages. One whistled softly. "This is remarkable," he murmured. "You've created an entire relationship management system outside the corporate framework." "I created a way to remember people, not just room numbers," I corrected. "And yes, without it, you get what happened today." Diane stepped forward, her voice placating. "Tilly, if you'll just help us implement these notes, I'm sure we can work through our differences and—" "No," the word was quiet but firm. "I'm not staying." Her face fell. "But you came back. You brought your notebook." I came back because innocent people are suffering for your poor decision. I brought the notebook because the staff deserves a chance to succeed, but I won't work under someone who values procedural compliance over human dignity." Mr. Blackwood cleared his throat. "Actually, Tilly, that's something we've been discussing." He glanced at Diane, whose face had gone white. "In light of today's events and the information we've gathered from staff interviews, we've decided to make some organizational changes." The silver-haired executive nodded. "Effective immediately, Diane will be transferred to our corporate training division to learn about adaptive management approaches." Her tone made it clear this was a demotion disguised as a development opportunity. Diane's mouth opened in protest, but a sharp look from Mr. Blackwood silenced her. "And," he continued, turning to me, "we'd like to offer you the position of Director of Guest Experience, not just for this property, but as a regional resource to implement your approach across our portfolio." I blinked, processing the offer. "You're creating a position for me?" "We're recognizing a gap in our business model," the silver-haired executive corrected. "Today made it painfully clear that our success depends on more than following handbooks. We need your expertise in building the human systems that our protocols can't capture." For a moment, I said nothing, looking from Mr. Blackwood to the executives to Diane, whose perfect composure had completely crumbled. 3 years of early mornings, late nights, and constant problem-solving, all while being told I needed to stick to the handbook. 3 years of watching Diane take credit for the guest satisfaction my approach had created. And now, in a single chaotic day, everything had changed. "I'll need certain conditions," I said finally. Mr. Blackwood nodded eagerly. "Name them." "Pearl becomes night manager with appropriate pay increase. Joey gets the security supervisor position he's been denied 3 times. Clara heads housekeeping with authority to implement her training ideas." The executives exchanged glances, then nodded. "Anything else?" Mr. Blackwood asked. I looked directly at Diane, who couldn't meet my eyes. "Yes, I need 48 hours to consider your offer. During that time, Diane will personally call every guest who checked out early because of today's issues and explain that their negative experience was the result of her management decisions, not staff failures." The color drained completely from Diane's face. That's humiliating." "Yes," I agreed calmly. "It is, just like being fired in front of guests and colleagues for asking a reasonable question." The silver-haired executive studied me for a moment, then smiled slightly. "I think that's more than fair, Diane." With no other option, Diane nodded stiffly. I picked up my notebook. "I'll help stabilize the situation tonight. Pearl and I will contact the Silvermans and see if they'll return. We might salvage part of the convention if we move quickly." As the meeting dispersed, Diane approached me in the hallway, her voice low. "You planned this, didn't you? You knew everything would fall apart without you." I looked at her steadily. "No, Diane, you planned it when you decided I was replaceable. I just took my knowledge with me, exactly as you instructed." The realization dawned in her eyes. The notebook itself wasn't the valuable thing I'd taken, it was merely a physical representation. What I'd truly taken was my irreplaceable human approach to hospitality, my ability to see beyond protocols to the actual people we served. "You'll never manage like this at corporate," I added quietly. "There's no handbook for rebuilding a reputation you've destroyed yourself." I left her standing there and headed toward the lobby, where Pearl waited anxiously. "What happened?" she asked. "We have work to do," I replied, handing her the notebook. "Let's start with calling the Silvermans." Over the next several hours, we orchestrated what the staff later called the resurrection. One by one, we contacted departed guests, offering personalized apologies and arrangements to entice them back. Pearl called Mr. Thompson directly, promising his preferred cognac would be waiting if he returned. I personally spoke with Mrs. Silverman, detailing exactly how we would correct every aspect of their disrupted experience. By midnight, 6 major guests had agreed to return, including the Silvermans. The convention might be salvageable after all. As the crisis slowly stabilized, I stood in the quiet lobby after most guests had retired for the night. Through the grand windows, the lake reflected the hotel's lights, creating the illusion of 2 identical buildings, one reaching toward the sky, one extending into the depths below. Perhaps that was the perfect metaphor for what had happened. The visible Alpine, with its marble floors and rainfall showers, had always been supported by an invisible foundation of human connections that I had quietly built and maintained. Now everyone understood which part truly mattered. Joey approached, offering me a cup of tea. So, will you take the new position? I smiled, watching as Diane exited the building with her personal items in a box, escorted by security, exactly as I had been just yesterday. I haven't decided yet, I answered truthfully, but I know one thing for certain. What's that? I took a sip of tea, savoring both its warmth and the moment. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can take with you isn't what they think it is. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more workplace stories. Have you ever been underestimated at work only to have them realize your true value later? Share your experience in the comments. I read every single one and would love to hear from you.